everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and we will discuss on building communities for Metaverse. This is very popular, and especially I want to give thanks all of our audience how we get support from South Asia, from India, from Bangladesh, from Sri Lanka, from Nepal, and the huge communities, business organizations, universities, government agencies. They are actually collaborate with World Talent Economy Forum. Perhaps this is one of the largest collaborations in Southeast Asia. So hopefully through the contribution we can create a great impact. Metaverse is very very popular, especially for the youth communities. Even today we get another commitment. We will develop a business incubations and the talent economy lab with very largest corporations and few cities already they collaborate with us. So hopefully your contributions can make a huge impact for the developing nations. And I want to give chance Mr. Eric, and I want to give special thanks to Madam Lisa to join today's session. Mr. Eric.
Well, the metaverse is all about connection, as is the internet and anything we ever do. It's always people trying to get together to do things for fun and business. So the interesting thing about the metaverse, which is trying to connect all these different technologies that Web 3.0 is. And so connection is critical. And I think today we'll have some good thoughts on how people connect. But once people connect, the real key is to remove the friction so they can interact. So people with common interest and values and goals come together for things like building cities together or trying to buy a copy of the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. That's happened. So a lot of groups come together, do all kinds of interesting and crazy things these days. But then they want to remove that friction on how they can get together. Lisa, who's on there, does the term playing, which I agree with. Playing is just something you would do whether you got paid or not because you like it. So if you can get people to connect and play, then they start sharing things that have value. And eventually that catches on, and all of a sudden you have a new world on game or a new city showing up. And that's actually happened. Have people getting together and buying land together to build a new city. But the real challenge is how do you get these people to scale and turn into sustainable things? Because it's so new that people are going, so how do we grow this thing? I mean, things like legal status of this community. We got a community, so are we liable if for example, if this is considered a general partnership, then theoretically anything anybody wants to sue any of us for, we could be liable for. So that whole instance of what is your legal entity, especially when this legal entity exists all over the world. There's a interesting book called The Network State, which talks about actually building these organizations or even countries first on the internet and then linking them geographically. So they're basically countries or governments or organizations that first go internet. And you can go to the networkstate.com/dashboard and you can see all these people that have already registered as network states to try and form their own organizations online. Of course, gaming is huge, and we've got people coming together to build virtual worlds, and you can mine on some of our planets if you like, and also keeping people engaged. You see people more and more. I see the ability to transfer value, even if it's just respect tokens or real money. People are saying, here, I like what you're doing, have some money. So to me, it's this idea of make it easy to find each other, make it easy to interact, make it easy to create new things and share, and make it easy to turn those into real efforts. They either stay virtual or go physical, or stay virtual and physical.
Thank you. Professor David Smith.
Hey guys, thank you so much. Let me just step back 1 second, go back into the metaverse a minute. It is really a hypothetical way to look at the internet as a single, universal, and immersive vertical world. that has many different ways to access it.
Professor David Smith, can you
Many different
unmute
ways to
yourself?
access it. Sorry, it went into mute for me. And it's often linked to virtual reality technology, 3D technology. But what's interesting to me with this is that the whole term for the metaverse originated in a science fiction novel called Snow Crush back in 1992. And as you try to look at where we're going with this, it's clear that the metaverse, the way it's beginning to roll out now and how we're seeing it roll out, it's not just a platform for gaming. It's not just a platform for humans as an extension of uh, social media, the other things we're doing on our computers and our smart devices. It is not just a platform for human users. It is really a communication layer for smart cities, for Internet of Things devices. It's a place where humans and artificial intelligence can share information. It's a place where we can create the communities we're talking about today in the metaverse. And uh, as the metaverse came into being, the first smart home that was developed for the metaverse uh, actually sold for $500,000 as a virtual artist-ridden smart home, which it exists in bits and bytes in a virtual arrangement with nothing there. And I don't know, I with for $500,000, I can buy some pretty good bricks and mortar today. But the whole thing of building communities, and I just love to see, because what this does is it lets us uh, see how we can combine science fiction with science fact, with our virtual worlds and our physical worlds, and how do we take marketplaces and put in place? How do we uh, do the other things? And Eric was beginning to hit many of the issues. I mean, we have issues in hardware, software, standards, big ones in standards, big ones in privacy, security, user safety. A lot of the social issues have to play in here as well too. So there's just a lot going on with this, and a lot can go. And we're seeing education beginning to be refined. We're seeing going to meetings. I can now attend physical meetings in the metaverse. Uh, I can use the metaverse for so many different ways, and I can have multiple avatars. I can have multiple personalities, which is part of what makes metaverse communities tough to deal with. But that's kind of I think, first key in there. We've got a lot of speakers, so I will stop for now and let you go into the next one.
Thank you, Madam Ali Rice.
Okay, so I'm really confused about the metaverse, because I use Facebook a lot to socially connect with business people and entrepreneurs, and with my friends and family. And obviously Facebook's called Metaverse as well. So I think the one thing that I would say, because the online world is really important to me and has been integral to business since 2020. And there's a huge network of entrepreneurs that I was already connected to. But when 2020 hit, that was a kind of a platform for training and education, and kind of real development with kind of people that have the same kind of values and kind of outlook in the world, really. And I think it pushed us forward. I'm also part of the Royal Society of Arts as well. And because education was taken online when we were forced to kind of online school, as supposedly that's pushed education 10 years forward as well. But it's also widened the gaps between people that have access to technology and those that don't. So I think the thing is that extension, and I don't spend my time playing games, or I have real connections. So the thing is that I'm still quite attached to kind of real connections as opposed to avatars. But I think it's really exciting to explore the space and kind of meet with people from around the world in one space and have real connection and real conversations, which is what your forum does brilliantly, Shireen. So I think the thing is, if we can build and actually work in partnership to kind of bring best practice and share best practice. You know, it's really exciting to see where we go. So, you know, so that's my own experience of what the metaverse can do.
Thank you. Madam Lisa.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all in the metaverse. I think I'll just say a few words about it. As Eric knows, I could talk for hours, if not days. But to me, I replaced the word imagination with metaverse as the simplest description. And you could look at adding technology to it as really what's happening now. But we've been doing that for a long time. I mean, many of us have sat and talked on the phone and, as you mentioned, evolved into the internet and doing things online. I was lucky enough to be in the Crown community, which some of the people here know about and are part of, for maybe 4 years. So we were on Zoom every week for a long time. And when 2020 hit, you know, we were already doing other things and scheduling other things on Zoom. It was natural. And so we just welcomed people in with us. And that led to people realizing we could have shared values of more equitable ways to create and gather and manage resources and allocate those resources. And after discussing these every week for a while, you know, they get into us as real possibilities. And then we would start to create, and that would lead to discussions. Telegram was really transformational, I think, as was Twitter and Discord, respectively. But it allows us to get together in groups, small groups or public groups. We literally manage business in some of the groups. And in others, we just played, or well, I'll say play everywhere. But for example, one day in the Telegram group at Crown Token with a K, which was our still is our community group, I asked, what would you put in a virtual town? Speaking of cities. And people kept answering all day long. And Max was like, why don't you make another channel? And we did, called Crownlandia. And from that, I set up my imaginary place, which was Lisa's coffee shop, which now you can get NFTs to turn them into real coffee. We're just experimenting with that. But I've met hundreds of people and made many, many very good lifelong friends through the experiences I've had. Many of us started playing a game called Alien Worlds, which has become the #1 blockchain game. And many of us went to work there for a bit, including myself. Early 2021, I was writing about the metaverse before I was reading about it. And there's a lot of Medium articles about that. And it was really allowing us to talk about our imagination, because the Alien Worlds game is a simulation of Earth's economy and allows us to make that whatever we want. You just click this, click that, and you get resources. Now do whatever you want. And communities started emerging, and some people created characters, and some people created experiences, and some people created, you know, ways to get more resources from those resources. And some people made virtual coffee shops. And interestingly, throughout those experiences, people would, in different ways, get tokens or different resources. And we would watch people around the world that we've known for a couple of years just kind of like move up in terms of their, what I'll call, socioeconomic status, for at least temporarily. But I have messages from people, you know, I bought a house, no one in generations of my family has ever done that. Like, you know, I thought I would be doing nothing, and now I'm getting married and having a child. You know, like, I can't believe I'm able to have a job like that. Like, it's in many, many ways been really transformational. And then then came the early players of Alien Worlds, and that was really transformational for many people. And many, many games emerged after that, perhaps not even knowing their heritage in that way. from the the Ethereum, then EOS, then EOSIO, now Antelope, then Wax stack of blockchain technology. But I continue to talk to communities every day, and we're going to be doing some workshops at workshop.games to allow people to sit like this and talk and think about it, because when it's left to our imagination and we can create anything we want, and we have an unprecedented opportunity to get people what they need around the world extremely rapidly, it seems like a good chance and a good time to put aside preconceived notions and say, okay, what would we do? Because 10% of the people are actually going to do it. And I'm watching it, and I'm happy to be here to share the stories with you. And feel free to follow up with me at Lisa Chandler anytime in Telegram, Twitter, Discord. And you'll see me flying around the metaverse.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Jason.
Hey, thanks for having us on. Pleasure to be here. I think one way of thinking of the metaverse is as a browser experience. It's like a browsing style. If you think about the experience of browsing the internet for whatever case you're using it for, whether it's to gather information or to be entertained or to connect with people, the metaverse is a format for that. It's a format for that. And it's a qualitatively different one. And in our space with token economics, a lot of the time we get to thinking of resources as being commodities that you have, that wealth and success is measured in more as a quantitative implement, more so than the right fit as a qualitative implement. And that in our economy, there is a tremendous sort of competitive vector for experience, for the appetite in the market, for the demand for quality experience. Although it's a fickle one to say whether or not you've provided it, because in a quantitative way, you can weigh and say like 1 kilogram of sawdust, let's say, if sawdust were a commodity. Here's your exactly 1 kilogram, and I definitely gave it to you, so you definitely complete, right? Satisfied. If a person is going for a qualitative experience, then you have to just take it for what it is. If it's a letdown, or if it's an overwhelm, or if it's too much information, or whatever the case may be, if the person is not having the quality experience that they're searching for, then they will maybe not come back, or maybe keep looking, or maybe give you feedback. And that's what the metaverse, that's one way of viewing the metaverse. It's just one dimension of it, as it's a qualitative browser experience. Any type of site you might have, any type of site you do have, you might want to think about it as an implement for the user interface. And since we have so many speakers, I think I'll just leave my first comment at that for today. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Mr. Raymond.
Hello, everybody. Thanks again, Sharif, for the invitation. There's something really interesting which I see happening already, exactly with regard to developing communities. And one of the speakers already touched on it, is finding new, perhaps, hopefully, better ways in which we can develop, govern, interact with each other. It's been a bit of a free-for-all on the online side of things with regards to communities. Trolling is huge, bullying is huge, but I see one of the advantages of developing these metaverse communities is that it is very much a conglomeration or a coming together of like-minded individuals, as Jason mentioned, people that are aligned or have similar likes, beliefs, whatever you want to say. And so the governance of these spaces is something that I think is going to be really, really interesting to see develop over time. I heard Metaverse described to me, I had it described to me once as, if you think of it as a stadium, a football stadium, So this football stadium is not necessarily just for going to watch football. You walk into you purchase your ticket online. With this ticket, you enter. So you've already done the exchange between fiat currency to a ticket. This ticket is an NFT, which you use to enter the stadium. Once you're inside the stadium, it might not be football. It might be a concert. It might be a community fair. It might be, you go in there, you have different stores, people selling food, people selling, could be coffee, could be anything, people selling merchandising of different types. And it's a way of people getting closer, I think, and more people connecting with more people. A good example was, although it's not my favorite artist by a long stretch, wouldn't even put him in that group of favorites, but Travis Scott, he would earn, say, around $2 million for a show. All right, he produced a show on the Metaverse, and instead of, that $2 million was only possible because of the amount of people that were able to enter the event. And actually, one of his events, I think there was a few dozen people were killed because of people getting crushed or something tragic happened. So this Metaverse event, he one event, same amount of his time. He had an avatar presenting himself, producing his music, but he was able to have 20 million. He received $20 million for that event because you're able to expand your marketplace. More people were able to reach and get closer to you. So it's still very much a jockeying for position. Like Ali was saying, it's like, I don't really know what it is, but it's here. And like anything in the world, that's right back to the 60s where we're watching Batman or we're watching Star Trek. You have the people sliding the doors backwards and forwards before there were sliding doors. The comms unit that Captain Kirk flips out and is talking to Scotty up in space. That all exists now. So I think it's really, it's a wonderful way to be able to extend, expand, explore our imaginations. But I think the governance side of it is going to be really, really crucial because we have all this advancement technologically, but socially we're still pretty much smashing rocks with a stick. So I'm very, very excited about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Raikon. Mr. Raikon Volta, can you hear me? Yeah.
Greetings. How's it going? Thank you for having me today, Sheriff. So, welcome to the Metaverse. Pretty intriguing stuff.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mark.
Let me go.
Hi.
I'm here. Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
My opinion is might be a little different. Is we're already in the metaverse and it's dystopic. There's nothing real about money right now. Money is only our agreement of exchange. We've had over the years destruction of community. There's a book I started reading, Bowling Alone, where there used to be bowling leagues and all these other things of people gathering together to solve problems, and it's decimated, especially in the last couple years. We have a centralized government that is becoming fascist and violating all forms of rules that we used to have. That's dystopic. our public spheres, people talk about AI and worry about AI in the future, and we already have it. If you look at all the social platforms censoring people, a direct violation of our First Amendment rights. And if you look at that whole system as an AI, let's say, because Twitter, let's say, is not real, it's already dystopic. So we have two paths of our future. One path is to go down a path of a online metaverse where we continue to ignore our neighbors and our community and live in the online metaverse, or we can use the tools being developed in the metaverse realm and the funding that might be going towards it and rebuild our communities, regenerate our earth so that humans can continue to exist, so that my granddaughter can have a non-dystopic life in the future. And I think it's okay to have pieces of metaverse, things about metaverse, and money will always be metaverse. It will never be real. But to use those tools for the betterment of the most important home, which is our Earth and all the humans on it and all the species on it. So that's my view.
Thank you. Markley.
Glad to be joining this conversation. I actually just talked to a friend of mine that is very much involved in the Blackverse space, and I was actually trying to get her to come on, but she's having some computer issues and all of that. But Nicole Maxwell is very much involved in that space and was actually very helpful with us on a expo that we did recently that also touched on the metaverse as well. And one of the things that I've been enjoying about this space, and this was actually the Black Business Olympics, which is bi-monthly now, so they do it about once every other month. So we just finished the September one, and the next one will be in November. But there was a lot of conversations around the metaverse, and one of the things that I am seeing in the metaverse space, which unfortunately is not displayed in this particular panel, but that was just the way that things fell out and all of that, but it has given people an opportunity to bring more diversity and all along those lines. Because I definitely, as I mentioned, there was the Blackverse, and they actually just did a Blackverse summit on this past week. So that was actually back on, I think it was Thursday and Friday of the week before. So not the week that we just came out of, but the week before that, and all along those lines. But definitely a lot of people, even in the African American community, are following and looking at the metaverse because they remember the old days of the Black Wall Streets and things of that space. And this is an opportunity within a metaverse to create those kinds of institutions, whether that is businesses, whether that is, as the young lady Lisa said, being able, and as my friend Nicole says, hey, if I want to go party on the planet of Pluto, I can do that in the metaverse. Can't do that in real life, but I can definitely do that in the metaverse and all in that space. So definitely, I find it to be quite fascinating. I do have some concerns that if we get too caught up in the metaverse, that we don't have enough of the modern day realities as well. So as long as we are able to, maybe go out and enjoy some fishing, if that is your thing. And I heard the gentleman mention bowling. If you were into bowling, go ahead and do the bowling in the real world and all of that. And then if you want to do it in the metaverse, you can do it in the metaverse at the same time, or maybe later on. And I do know that as we are more in a hybrid world, that many people are trying to figure out how to blend what is in the computer lands as well as what is going on in the real space. I am involved in event planning and concert promotions, and I know that even at some of the concerts that we're doing at the Hayti Heritage Center, we may be doing them in the actual venue, which only seats about 400 people, but we might be also sending them out to some of the other means, and not so much the metaverse yet, even though we are exploring that, but definitely using platforms like YouTube and other things so that folks around the world can watch those same concerts, and probably, hopefully, as we increase our reach, have an even wider base of people that are watching. I mean, it might only be as many as are watching it right now, in the well, actually less in the real venue as there are on the YouTube. But part of that is also around the marketing, which also goes on in the metaverse space as well. So definitely, I have been intrigued and very much involved and looking at how the metaverse can help people in the event planning space and just in life in general. But definitely, it does seem like it is a thing that is not going anywhere. So, like the gentleman said, using the Star Wars example and Star Trek and all of that, I do think that it is something that we will be dealing with for some time. And I hope that as we deal with it, that we do realize that we are a very diverse society. And I do know that there are everything from Black metaverses to Native American metaverses to metaverses that reach out to a variety of societies and even interests as well. So that's where I'll leave it at in that early opening comments.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Eric.
Well, I listened with everybody with interest, and like, there's a lot of points here. I enjoyed Mark's take on the dystopian future, potential future, which in many ways is already here, and we've got lots of horror stories of people having being outed, so to speak, revealed who they are and what they have, and so it can be a a dangerous place. But Thomas Friedman talked about the world being flat in his book, and the idea is that we can reach out and have these discussions right now geographically. I mean, we have Asia Pacific, we've got Europe, we've got United States right here. So the world becomes flat. But it also, if you look at Richard Florida's view, he says the world is spiky. And yeah, some things are flattening out, but some things are becoming focused. For example, the financial people of New York have a lot more common with London than they do with Nashville. And Nashville has a lot more in common in music with Hollywood and other music centers. So you start seeing these areas and people of interest at the same time. Last Saturday we had a charity event for an art association that I'm helping with, and the whole focus of there is community. It's people coming together to make the world better, and specifically the community we live in better through art, business through art, education through art, elder care through art, special needs through art. So it's very focused. On the other hand, we're looking for other people like us to share ideas. We're looking for these spikes of other people who believe in art and creativity like we do. And the most valuable thing of that is the fact that data becomes available and interoperability. We used to share data with the internet. Then with the World Wide Web, we said, hey, we can share information. Then with the cloud, we can share capabilities, but let's go to Raymond Stadium. Well, now the idea is we can bring everything into that stadium and make it easier and easier to connect. For example, Lisa has a coffee shop. Well, what if I open a bakery? And what if Ali Rice opens, a total organic, vegan, omelet store, and we put it together, and we even create a game, or we create motivation to do that, kind of like making things fun. Like if you look at Fold It, that was how do you do protein folding and figure that out, turn it into a game and get a bunch of people solving a science problem together. But then Jason comes along and says, yeah, but I know he has a passion for agriculture, so where's all this food to make this come from? Where are the coffee beans? And he builds a game on top of that. So the key is that not only can we find our spikiness and reach out to a flat world, but we can build in the metaverse games and activities on top of games and activities. And I think that's what makes it different. We're moving from being sharing capabilities to actually sharing and building experiences together, even to the point Lisa talked about Alien Worlds. With their Galactic Hub, we're talking about how do you get Minecraft into Alien Worlds and back and forth. And I think that is the big advantage we're doing. It's that interoperability. And I'm sure David will have lots to say about that.
Thank you. Mr. David.
As Eric said, I love the discussions we're having here today. Let me kind of circle back on a couple of things. The metaverse community, rapidly growing. It means a lot of things for different people. We've looked at some of the hardware, software. Earlier this year, the senior vice president at Intel was talking about the metaverse, and he said that if it's truly going to be persistent and immersive computing at scale by billions of humans in real time, that the hardware required is over 1,000-time increase in computational efficiency from today. So to really scale this out with metaverse communities, we've got to make huge advances in computational capabilities. We need to make huge advances in visualization capability, and particularly around 3D. As I mentioned earlier, privacy, security, really big challenges as we go there, and what we need to do. We talked about standards. We know that there's multiple groups working on standards, which is good and which is also bad, because we need to come up with some global standards. And then we can look at individual communities with some of their own. User safety. User safety still a big concern. It is easier to bully in the metaverse than it is in traditional social media. And we already know that bullying is bad in social media. So we've got to look at user safety and particularly different ways to deal with predators, the legal issues. If we're exchanging currency, where's the responsibility for the currency? Can we enforce the contracts? Do the smart contracts we use in cryptocurrency translate into the metaverse? A lot of social issues as we go there. But the other thing I wanted to do, and Sharif, this is always one of the questions you tend to ask me, is what are some of the opportunities for entrepreneurs? One of them is in retail. We're seeing a lot of retail environments being set up in communities in the metaverse. There's a new concept really called the creators economy, where people are creating content and monetizing it, kind of like we talked about earlier last week. Well, the ability to do the creator economy in a metaverse community is going to be good. Avatar technology is going to be a big thing for entrepreneurship, because we're seeing that advancing, and the ability, for example, to create digital clones from us is going to be something that gives a lot of entrepreneurs. One thing I experienced this weekend with some friends is here in Austin, we actually have a really good fashion industry springing up. And there was a very interesting trash fashion show this weekend in the metaverse, which had participation from around the world. We're seeing that infrastructure for entrepreneurship, gaming, entertainment, all of these are places in the metaverse communities where entrepreneurs can work. And Sharif, with your new incubator you're building there, these types of topics in this community of the metaverse are really appropriate to begin to pull into your incubator there, both your physical incubator and your virtual incubator that's going to be part of that. So what we're talking about today fits really well into the future of the World Talent Economic Forum's plans there, I think. And of course, education is the other place where entrepreneurs can work in the metaverse. You know, and we see that, but a lot of opportunities there, and but there's a lot of concerns and requirements that still need to be put in place for the metaverse communities to be able to scale, conduct really effective Congress, and to meet regulations that are really fractured now and not consistent for a metaverse that's a global one. There's just not the thing in place yet to effectively manage it all yet. So Sharif, thank you.
Yeah, just quick.
Madam Ali Rice.
Okay, so I'm really it's really interesting that the creative content is one of the things that's kind of, as it has huge potential, and I think with creativity that you don't want limitation, so that kind of, and I think so if you look at different fields, say in the UK, or is it probably as across the globe, so interesting, some industries still aren't regulated. So my husband was a funeral director, and that's unregulated. Yoga teachers are unregulated. So the thing is, that you know, that there's lots of things that you think are regulated that are not, and I think the thing is that it comes down to trust and faith, and you know, that connection that you make, and you trust the connection or you don't. So I think and I think the one concern with the metaverse is if people are using different avatars, you know, that there isn't, you know, when we have this panel that we see each other's faces and we recognize each other, you know, and there's that ongoing there, that there's a trust. So I think that's the thing, is in a virtual world that there are trust issues, and I think that's one of the concerns. But I know that there was an article on it. So there was a young guy that was an artist, and he sells digital artwork in the metaverse, and he's made huge amounts of money, and his parents really were very cynical about what he was doing, and he was digitally designing all the stuff in his bedroom, and has made, you know, a career and you know, a name for himself. So I think the thing is that the fact that a young person can create from their own bedroom and have a global reach and acquire a global market is incredible. So I think as a creative entrepreneur that wants to impact the world and make a difference, that you know, that gives you an impact. But I do sympathize actually with Mark's kind of analysis of, you know, the dystopia of what's happened, and the fact that we've been kind of confined to our homes, and our speech has been restricted, and there's censorship on. It's a massive, you know, back step to kind of our freedom and liberty, that people kind of, you know, people that went to world wars to kind of, and lost their lives to gain freedoms, and our freedoms really have been and continue to be inhibited. And I've got two teenagers, and I encourage them to go for their dreams and be creative and innovative, and you know, and that's what I believe. Everyone's got potential, and kind of enabling people to kind of access their power and free up that potential is really important. Maybe the metaverse can do that, but I think the thing is that we still need to realize there's a natural world, and we're part of a kind of interconnected, you know, it's a place where we need to live and breathe fresh air, and, you know, have fresh food, and, you know, and I think sometimes the virtual world's kind of overtaken the fact that we still need to safeguard and be custodians of the natural world that we're in. So yeah, so I see both.
Thank you. Madam Lisa.
Well, I'll see if I can address a few topics, although I could probably have a long conversation about everything everyone said, each item. But having been in what I call the metaverse for many years now, I assure you I've never had better experiences in nature, more experiences in nature, more time to spend with family. I've never had the ability to.
Hey, Lisa, you might want to check. You might want to check your mic, Lisa.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have been holding my hand over it. So, just to recap, since I've been in the metaverse, I've never had more time in nature, better experiences with people and family, and realized more time to do what I think is important, more resources to spend on nature and preserving it on my small community, which we weren't able to do before. Prior to that, for the many decades before that, I had to deal with what I call work, even though I love work. Most of my hours, many times in a place where I couldn't leave, many times not feeling good about my day. And that is way worse than any thought we might have about our fears of virtual reality. I was bullied on a regular basis, dare I say daily, for decades at work. And stress is the number one killer. So I would make a case, there is absolutely no comparison. Freedom is much preferred. And I believe that some very wise people realized this and created blockchain technology for us to free us. Because we can say all we want, or not us, anyone, any government, any regulator, any technology creator, they can say, we're going to regulate this, but it's built for freedom, not for regulation. So, what most people say they're going to do to regulate it is literally not possible. Now, granted, there are many opportunities for regulation and for wisdom being incorporated into systems and things that are built on top of the blockchain and using it. But it is open and free and uncontrollable. And so that's important to know. And that is the backbone and the structure of our of what Metaverse is. I think it's obviously interesting that the head of a major technology company whose entire reputation is going to crumble if he doesn't have a massive need in the metaverse. And, you know, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people lose their jobs if he fails. I can see why he thinks we need acceleration of technology, but let me tell you, it's working just fine right now. It's not necessarily for commercializing or for scale, but people can go in and create experiences and gain rewards and have better lives. And to touch on diversity, years ago, I did a lot of thinking and creating of concepts around diversity when I was working at UCLA. And in the metaverse, what, you know, has the past 4 years, I'll say, I've worked with people all over the world, and it hardly has struck me to even have a need about that conversation at the global level. At the local level, it's a different issue, but at the global level, it's a much brighter future, I think, for individuals everywhere. So I'd say it's very positive. It's still very experimental. And so any one of you, each one of you can create something and gain rewards by doing that, and click on some buttons and get rewards in the metaverse. And I'm happy to show you how if you want. But it's way easier than you think, and you do not need any virtual reality technology. I do suggest a web browser, like Jason says, because you are going to need that. But other than that, you're pretty good. I mean, you're going to get some wallets along the way, get a Wax Cloud wallet, maybe get a MetaMask wallet, and have to figure out what that means. And, you know, it's good if you're on Telegram. It's good if you're on Discord, if you like it. It's a little more, you know, advanced, but to connect with people. YouTube's good, like this, right? But, you know, we're good to go. It's finally prime time to engage people. And if certain technology providers want to scale their technology, okay, we'll check it out, you know. But we can all begin to thrive now. We don't have to wait.
And it's pretty cool that we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Roku all at the same time. That's an example of the metaverse right there. Jason, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, we're accumulating to some values. We're moving from the specific to the general. And with all that, I'll try to build. I mean, modestly. But utopia means no such place. Utopia is the word that refers to the next step, the imagined step, the grass that's greener somewhere else. And that dystopia is a destiny. It has the same basis of like what it's referring to. It is a track that it's a course to take. It's a track that we're on. It's a direction collectively towards a state of being. But there is no theoretic escape from obedience and rules. Even like in the body of law, half the body of law is a restriction on the scope of law, and that like certain types of evidence are not real. You can't use it as evidence because it was obtained illegally, for example. And that there are laws preventing us from interfering with each other in a lot of ways. And that even though the law is meant to protect freedom, to maximize freedom, in that it's a law that prevents people from interfering with each other, that is still a rule to obey, and that there's always a vector of obedience for that, and that there's a self-regulatory aspect to freedom amongst the culture. If a culture believes in freedom, then they really have to allow each other to do whatever it is that they're doing, and to also ignore each other, even if they could look into each other if they care for privacy. For example, like, there's this measurable quality, or subjectively measurable quality, to whether the direction of things goes towards the utopia that you would describe, or towards the dystopia that we all fear. And it can be hard sometimes to know, like, we're like boiling frogs. We're just frogs in water. The temperature is changing. We don't know if it's like at the tipping point quite, or if it's still nice. Should we hop out and go to the next water or something? Like, is it getting better or worse, actually? Because a lot of people would argue that things are getting better with different types of rules that are more preventative to, say, the externalities of industry, where if one person says, I have the freedom to make alloys, to melt steels together and make alloys, of course you have that freedom. And then in that process, what you've done to, say, the groundwater nearby, or the pond, or the river, or something, interferes with the freedoms of others. And so what to do about that is the governance issue, that maximizing freedom on the balance can be hard to know if it's getting better or if it's getting worse. How this pertains to Metaverse is simply that there are fewer constraints to one's vision of a utopia. You can build your vision of a utopia marginally closer and easier and faster than in reality, and you can run a simulation. You can run a simulation to say, in this value set and in this set of rules, like, we'll describe the vector of obedience and compliance and see how it works. Like, do people go with that? Because the magic of law and order really is that many of them are celebrated into enforcement, where the people believe in their own rule. Like, when a culture is sound and stable, then the participants in that culture enthusiastically embrace their choice for how to position the vector of obedience, and that they occasionally remind each other informally, and in 1,000 subtle ways, they make it a collective enforcement body through, like, what's rewarded with respect and what is treated with dismissal. The reality of law enforcement is that it depends on this. It depends on this reality, in that a rule that is rejected by the majority of a culture cannot be enforced through coercion for very long. There's just too much pressure in the contact in the surface area. Only the rules that are enthusiastically embraced and celebrated into enforcement really stand the test of time, in my opinion. So this is the grand joke, is that freedom is an endless conversation, because at each little instance, you have to have a conversation about how to handle that and learn the correct lesson from the incident about how to handle that, and behaviorally learn what flies and what doesn't. And the metaverse, not only providing simulations for that, but also providing a forum for that endless conversation. I mean, run a search engine on it. You'll see the quote, freedom is an endless conversation. If we're to respect each other's bodily integrity and not resort to brutal measures of coercion to enforce law, then at every little dilemma, we're going to talk about it. And why not in the metaverse?
Thank you. Mr. Raymond.
Wow, that was really deep, Jason. Thank you. I'm absorbing all that, guy. Yeah, the governance thing, from me, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be crucial. I've been fortunate enough to be working with a group of business partners, associates, with outside of in the real world, and I'm quite fortunate to be outside, pretty much riding bikes for a living. So I'm getting that natural kick and high that I need to be able to be nice and fresh and come into these virtual meetings like this. We use a system of governance called holacracy, which whereby if there are tensions between the different areas of the organization, we present the tensions, and we have a set series of rules that we use to process these tensions. And so through use of those, I'm guessing we're not encroaching or breaking any laws. And I think the natural laws really are the ones that we just need to work more towards, do unto others as we expect them to do unto us. Do what you want to do, as long as it doesn't hurt or adversely affect another person's journey in this world. I'm thinking about what Mark was saying about dystopia as well. I was thinking of a movie from the late 80s called They Live, John Carpenter movie, in this dystopian world where basically we're living in this dystopic world, which one gentleman happened to find a pair of sunglasses which showed through the layer all the messages that we're constantly being bombarded with, like I obey, you buy this, you do that. So dystopia, yeah, I've always felt that I've lived in a dystopian world since the age of 10, when I became more aware of the world around me, and the connecting with the tribe or communities or people that are like-minded, and in a space like the metaverse, or it might be similar spaces whereby you can gauge, you can see people, you can feel people, you can generally understand the validity or the truthfulness of people. I think is key. So I think forums like this, even though at the moment we're on Facebook Metaverse, but we're kind of outside or on the edge of the metaverse, looking in and looking out at the same time. The observer, the observee. I'm not really sure where we are, and I'm not really sure where I'm going with this. And hand it along. Thank you.
Mr. Raikun, Volta. Mr. Raikun, can you unmute, please? Okay, Mr. Raikun, can you unmute, please? Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. The things we can do with the metaverse are very interesting, including augmented reality, from Pokemon Go to going to the ancient ruins of historical sites and being able to see a virtual rendered version of those sites back in their glory days. Imagine being able to walk into Rome and see the Colosseum as it was thousands of years ago, or to be able to, I believe the metaverse is just a combination of blurring the line between the virtual and the physical world. So you can perhaps see a lot of data about everything around you. The metaverse doesn't have to pull you into the matrix. It could actually just augment your experience in the real world. If you're interested in, say, forging plants, the apps aren't very good, but they're improving. There are apps for foraging that can take a photo of a plant and say, this is the species of plant, so you could say, no, if it's poisonous, edible, or if it has other uses.
Brittany, welcome to my world.
The possibilities are fantastic. Not that I would recommend using them right now and trusting them with your life, but wouldn't want you to poison yourself, obviously.
Thank you, Mr.
A
Icon.
foraging app.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mark.
Hi, great conversation. I love what Jason was talking about. I think one of the next steps that we need is systems that are built from real humans at the beginning. So I think it's okay to be pseudonymous, but you need to be backed by a real human. A lot of the problems come in when people come in anonymously and disrupt the conversations and disrupt a lot of what's going on. So right now and it doesn't take a lot to verify real humans. I can tell all of you guys are real humans. A simple little video could do that. We don't need KYC and the government regulations involved. We can just do that as a new platform. And it's also why we can't probably use existing platforms like Facebook, because they're already in Twitter. They're already kind of corrupted. We need to start this from the beginning. The other thing is governance is extremely difficult, as I'm discovering more and more. You can't even get good governments on a small little HOA, because an HOA, homeowners association, starts out, with good intentions. We want a nice community and stuff, and then it gets overtaken by typically old people that have all the time to spend at the meetings and stuff like that. If we could, and what Jason said about using the metaverse to just run through lots of experiments and things that we could do to figure out good ways of governance. For example, Eric and I are part of Goal Fractally, which is is trying to be a true democracy type of a system, and I'm excited about that. There's also this Eden thing that we're working on, and just trying all these different new forms of governance that are outside of, quote, the government. So the communities can form together. And I think The Network State is a really good book where if we could come up with moral innovations to bring people together on specific issues to solve for the world, is one, and have the governance run through these simulations through the metaverse. And in the end, we're going to come out as maybe get towards the utopia. I think you're right. It's never something you even want to be in. In the end, you want to always be striving for something better and better. But I think that's where we could use these metaverse tools and cryptocurrency and blockchain and stuff like that to bring more freedom and bring better governance and better communication systems as well, like replacements of Twitter, Facebook, those things.
Thank you. Mr. Markley.
Yep, I've got to get ready to bounce very shortly since we've got another show going on Pod TV Roku, that being the media show. But yeah, I'm interested to see how the metaverse plays out, and it's definitely a great conversation. I see that Walmart's even getting involved in the metaverse as well. So definitely looking forward to learning more about how the metaverse is playing out. But we'll get ready to do that. Of course.
Sorry, I think internet problem. I want to go for the concluding remarks for today's session before I want to go for the concluding remarks, because you know that World Talent Economy Forum, we are operating our operations from South Asia. We are engaging with millions of people. We are developing lab with university, with different cities, uh, with largest corporations, and many communities actually join in World Talent Economy Forum. Especially, I would like to give chance to our audience, those who continuously support and joining and collaborating with World Talent Economy Forum. The speakers, those who want to collaborate from other part of the world with the World Talent Economy Forum, we are open. You can join in our uh, business lab, and you can integrate with our communities. We have lot of challenge, developing nations. This is also a good opportunity for entrepreneurs. They can create the solution, that then they can help the problem. We are working with education system, we are working with healthcare system, we are working with energy sectors and many more things. So we need all of your collaborations and support. So through your support, hopefully we can uplift millions of people from Southeast Asia. So Eric, what's your concluding remarks, and
I,
how this metaverse community can be helpful for my developing nations people?
I think the most important commodity right now, the most important skill is community building. Community is where it's all at. And I think you're starting to see organizations hire community managers with that realization. The challenge is big organizations such as Facebook want to keep the community there and build it and keep it there. That's very anti-metaversal. Metaversal is people go where they need and connect like we're doing today over multiple platforms. So there's going to be that struggle of Google and Facebook trying to hold on to their audience while everybody else is trying to build it around that. And I think there's going to be a bit about both. But the most challenging thing with the community is what several people like Mark brought up, which is the governance. So in governance, to be able to fairly come together, make decisions, build trust where it's needed, and so you have a network that either builds trust or is able to operate by enforcing success without trust. So I think trust systems and I think governance, I encourage people to go to fractally.com and read that book, More Equal Animals. Also, The Network State. They're both talking about that sociocracy. There's a lot of people talking about that and having experiences to figure out one or more or all those, how they work. But I think that is the most critical thing we can do is manage communities and help them govern well.
Thank you. Madam Aliraj.
Okay, so I actually think in all the online experience that I've had in the last 3 years, that the really incredible thing is having a local impact and a global impact at the same time. And I think that the metaverse, if that can do that, so it kind of brings people that are isolated together. So as a creative, it's quite an isolated position in lots of ways, because other than project managing, you spend your whole time kind of creating and then going to site and things like that. So I think kind of that ability to reach and bring other people together that are in the same situation is really important. And I think the entrepreneurs of the world are the people that are going to be the solution providers for the future as well. So I think I'm part of Genius U and the Entrepreneurs Institute over in Bali. And I think, that there's a massive global kind of push for people to kind of create solutions where they see the problems in their own communities. And I think the thing is, where there's solutions in one place, those solutions can probably be applied somewhere else. So I think that kind of just sharing best practice and the way we can kind of move forward is really important. So yeah. And as a creator, obviously, the creativity is key to changing the world and transforming it so that we can kind of create a future that's better for the generations to come. And this generation of children or young people are well informed and incredible. So the thing is that they're probably going to come up with solutions that our kind of generation wouldn't even think of. So, and they're the ones that have kind of got much more technical skills than we have. So I think technology's not going to go away, but I think it needs to work for us.
Thank you. Madam Lisa.
Well, it is a fascinating topic, isn't it? But I'm going to encourage you to consider trying to create a community that is a player community of games because it's a fun way to experiment. And if you look at jrslands.com, for example, he's the #1 player and landowner in Alien Worlds. And we created a world for him to give back to the communities by allowing them to share what they're doing with the players and to share in some of the trillium he gets for mining. And that offsets any, wax fees of minting NFTs that they're sharing. And this gets new players and helps games and communities grow. But if you look at the communities on there, some are well established, like Ultra Rare, that's one of the most large and beloved game card and comic communities on in the metaverse and on the web. But you also have new people who are just trying it for the first time, like the person who's creating the cookie exchange for the holidays. And then we have brands coming in from, if I know, the old world, who are finding their coffee in metaverse, such as Scrumpy of the Scrumps, who was at Jim Henson Studios for years, and now is going to give people a tour and travel around the metaverse so that they can play along. So, you too can create a community. Hi, Mr. T. He's from Lisa's Coffee Shop too, as well as World. And anyway, you too can create a community, and it's not really as hard as you might think, and it gives you a chance to play games and learn from each other and experiment. And it doesn't have to cost any money. It's much more fun if it doesn't, right? If you play and you get tokens and resources and people share things with you, it really keeps that spirit of play and experiment in mind and keeps you in a good mood. So play, don't pay, as you learn. So again,
Thank
happy
you.
to help anyone who wants to jump in.
Thank you. Mr. Jason.
Hey, thank you again. Yeah, a couple of points to cover there. Access to the internet and the device that you use to connect to the internet are things that you pay for, and that having those things in place is where it becomes free. And in the world of blockchain, that's the way to understand the network utilities, like staking resources to RAM, CPU, and net, or paying gas fees, or whichever transactional fees are native to the blockchain transaction in whichever metaverse you choose, are part of that access necessity. It'd be the same as saying, well, the game isn't free because I bought my phone. And you did, right? You paid for your phone and you use your phone to play the game, and the game doesn't have an entry fee, but there's still money involved. So there's that of all the people living on the planet today, a minority of them actually have reliable access with high-speed information. And so there's that, right? There's a lot of growth to consider here, and there's a lot of proliferation of information with that access expansion. And the point I really wanted to get to before that was the thing that I believe in the most is collective epiphany. The thing that I believe in the most, my politics revolves around collective epiphany. And those things occur internally. A person has a process that occurs internally that a stimulus of information has prompted. An experience in reality drives them towards the digital world to find answers. And that the physical world and the digital world interact with each other constantly in that way, and that problems that come from reality find their solutions from the world of experience that is written about, that is digital in its form now. And that the concern area is that the digital world makes the physical world worse by, one, extracting its minerals aggressively and using its energy intensively, and also at the same time costing the opportunity cost of people putting their time and attention into the physical world. When people, like the dystopian fear is there will be a future where poverty is rampant and reality is shit, and most of us live in like a steel square and we escape our lives by going through a digital fantasy just to be able to tolerate our existence, where we're fed bullshit. I mean, that sounds horrifying to me. And we'll probably be administered medications without our consent, or, you know, that too. But just kidding.
Thank you.
It is
Mr.
possible.
Raymond.
It is possible that the digital world, the metaverse. Okay, so the metaverse is the identifiers of reality. Like, meta content is not the content of the conversation; it's rather the endpoints of the conversation. It's identifying, like, index numbers, so to speak, and that the metaverse is the digital world that can affect the physical world. It can make it worse and it can make it better, and that it's also a delivery mechanism for a potential collective epiphany. And so it's a line we must walk, and it's a line we must walk well, I feel.
Thank you. Mr. Raymond.
With regards to like the use of the metaverse for helping develop overexploited countries, or also known as developing countries or third world countries, the metaverse that I've been recently involved with has here in Argentina has allowed us, or me and my family, over the course of the last 2 years, to be able to slowly regroup or regain some of the losses that we've incurred over the period of the global pandemic, also not being able to work. So complete different change in our finance structure. So the Lydian.world metaverse that I've been receiving, developing assets within, has been very, very interesting. I think currently there are around 377,000 citizens, and within this world, you're able to mine based on the GDP of individual countries and the people that are involved or citizens in each country. So it's quite an interesting space. We're currently working on the API link for different companies or different to allow different third-party projects to come in and utilize that as a launchpad for engagement within Lydian World. The community side of it is very interesting because each country has a president, vice president, so on and so forth, and you can bid for these positions and support the country, support these leaders in these countries to help develop various projects. Also, in there they have already for sale virtual properties, city developments, and these sorts of things. So it's quite an interesting space to be involved with. And of course, like the development of assets and in-world, not just in-world currency, but also real-world usable currency as well, has been really good. So really, yeah, it's been a very interesting conversation, hearing different perspectives. I think it's really important to not get caught up on the possibility of this dystopian, or give too much time thinking about this dystopic world that we live in at the moment, because that's time taken away towards solving problems, coming up with better solutions, and moving us towards better communities, better growth, just growing better people and being better humans. So thanks once again, Sharif, and everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Mark.
I just had a collective epiphany within my body. I really like that saying. It's good. I don't have anything more to add really on the subject. I really enjoyed this conversation with everyone and getting the different views of that, and hope to see you guys again.
Thank you, Professor David Smith. What's your concluding remarks?
I'm not sure if David heard, but David Smith, you're invited to including remarks.
Sorry, I had a hard time finding the unmute button because my cursor was lost on the other screen. Yeah, thank you again for this. This has been a very good one. Building communities is always part of life. It gets us into group intelligence. It gets us into the other elements. And this is important, particularly as we look at the next generation of what the internet can become, which is what many people think the metaverse will be in these new communities. But again, keep the challenges in mind, keep the regulation in mind, keep the liability in mind, the privacy and all those other issues. But the the movement has already started towards this, and we just need to stay up and be active with it. So, Sharif, thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. Hopefully see you next week. We have another session on Metaverse. Thank you everyone. Thank you. Bye bye and take care.
Okay.